The courtroom fell into a stunned silence, every eye locked on Judge Frank Caprio, who sat straighter than usual, his voice firm but heavy with conflict. Across from him, music mogul Sean "Diddy" Combs stood, no longer in the spotlight of fame, but under the glow of courtroom truth. But then, from the back row, a voice rang out. He didn't do this alone. It was Justin Combs, Diddy's son. As he stepped forward holding a USB drive, no one in that room could predict what would follow. Clips began to play. Tears fell. Even the most seasoned bailiff stood motionless. What was revealed next shook the courtroom and the nation, as Judge Caprio, caught between justice and mercy, prepared to make a decision no one saw coming. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next in Judge Caprio's courtroom. It wasn't a typical morning in Providence Municipal Court. The halls were quieter than usual, not from lack of crowd, but from the hush of anticipation. There was a weight in the air, like the building itself knew something important was about to unfold. Outside, a trail of news vans lined the curb. Inside, reporters filled the gallery, trying their best to blend in, though the lenses tucked under jackets and the hurried whispers made it clear. This was no ordinary hearing. Even Judge Frank Caprio, known for his warm smile and twinkle-eyed banter, walked in with a slightly more deliberate pace. His robe fluttered behind him like a shadow, and when he looked toward the defendant's table, there was recognition, alongside a somber curiosity. At the center of the room stood Sean Combs, known to millions as Diddy. Not the performer, not the mogul, but the man. He wore a finely tailored gray suit, crisp at the shoulders and cleanly pressed, but it couldn't hide the exhaustion on his face. He had no entourage, no bodyguards, no assistants, just a calm, lonely stillness. As he adjusted his tie, he glanced up at the bench and gave a half smile. It wasn't the smile he flashed at music awards or red carpet galas. It was more resigned, weary, human. "I didn't think we'd meet like this, Your Honor," Diddy said, his voice slightly hoarse, as if burdened not just by time, but by memory. Judge Caprio, lightly teasing, "Well, Mr. Combs, I usually meet folks in traffic court. You, I suspect, missed a red light somewhere bigger than Atwell's Avenue." A gentle ripple of laughter broke out across the courtroom. Even Diddy let out a faint chuckle, shaking his head slightly. But behind the smiles, tension still sat in the air like fog. The truth was, everyone knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary case. There were too many whispers, too many headlines, and too many questions still unanswered. Diddy was facing a cluster of serious charges: unlawful financial manipulation, conspiracy to intimidate witnesses, suppression of evidence, allegations that reached far back into the history of his music empire, Bad Boy Records, and extended into darker corners of the entertainment industry. Former collaborators, assistants, and artists had begun to come forward, many under sealed identity protections. The courtroom had been chosen for security, but rumors swirled about why the case had been moved from New York to Rhode Island. Some said Judge Caprio's impartiality had made him the only one trusted by both parties. Others believed the shift was a tactic, to bring the case somewhere smaller, quieter, away from media frenzy. Clerk, reading aloud, "Case 4589, State of Rhode Island versus Sean Combs. Charges: conspiracy to intimidate witnesses, suppression of evidence in civil litigation, unlawful financial coercion." There was a pause as the courtroom processed the weight of those words. But what few in that room knew was this. Behind the formal charges was something deeper, a quiet movement, a wave of former artists and collaborators who had been silent for years, some out of fear, others from loyalty, and one of them was closer to Diddy than anyone could have imagined. Judge Caprio, firm but warm. "Mr. Combs, you're a household name, not for courtroom drama. Until now, This court respects all who stand before it, no matter their fame or fortune. So, let's get to it. How do you plead? Diddy, calm but guarded. Not guilty, Your Honor. Judge Caprio, nodding. And your attorney? Defense attorney, Miss Serrano, sharply dressed, voice calm but deliberate. Maria Serrano, for the defense, Your Honor. We contend that the charges brought forth are not only built on hearsay and fragmented memories, but are also inflated by public opinion and biased testimonies. My client's prominence has made him a convenient target in the current media climate. Judge Caprio, leaning slightly forward, we will let the evidence, not assumptions, guide this court, Miss T. Serrano. Prosecutor, Mr. Whitford, older man with graying hair, speaks with conviction. Your Honor, the prosecution is ready. We intend to present a clear pattern of behavior that spans years. What we will show is not a single act, but a tapestry of intimidation, coercion, and financial manipulation. We'd like to begin with our first witness, Miss Kalina James. Courtroom murmurs as Kalina rises from the gallery. She walks slowly to the stand, her heels tapping like a metronome against the tile floor. A slim woman in her late 30s, Kalina wears a soft beige blouse and speaks with a quiet, almost trembling strength. Prosecutor Whitford, please state your name and your relationship to the defendant. Kalina. My name is Kalina James. I was a singer and producer under Bad Boy Records from 2006 to 2009. Prosecutor. How old were you when you joined the label? Kalina. 19. I was fresh out of high school and I thought I had the world at my feet. They said I had a voice that could sell records. I believed them. Prosecutor. What happened? Kalina, glancing briefly toward Diddy. I was promised a debut album, had 3 tracks recorded, even shot a low-budget video. But instead of pushing my music, the label started getting strange. I was told to sign non-disclosure agreements. I wasn't even sure why, until I witnessed something in Studio B. There was an argument between Diddy and our sound engineer, J-Bo. Then it got physical. The next day, J-Bo was gone. Just gone. No warning. He never returned to the studio. That's when I was warned. Keep my head down, or I'd be next. Defense Attorney Serrano, standing abruptly. Objection, Your Honor. This is speculative and allegedly occurred over 15 years ago. Memories fade. Emotions distort. Judge Caprio, raising a hand gently. Ms. Serrano. Sometimes it takes 15 years to grow the courage people should have had behind them back then. Let her speak. Defense Attorney, sitting slowly. Noted, Your Honor. Kalina, continuing. I didn't come here to destroy a man's legacy. I came because people like me, like J-Bo, we were treated like we didn't matter. And for a long time, I believed that too. But I kept a voice memo from that night. It's old. The audio's not perfect. But it's him. Judge Caprio, leaning in slightly. You have the recording? Prosecutor Whitford. Yes, Your Honor. With the court's permission, we'd like to play it. Judge Caprio, nodding once. Proceed. A court officer sets a small speaker on the prosecution's desk. Whitford presses play. A crackly audio recording fills the room. Faint studio sounds in the background, and then a sharper voice emerges. Diddy, on tape, stern, low, and unmistakable. If you say a word about what happened to him, you'll never work again. You understand me? The courtroom falls utterly silent. A soft gasp can be heard. Someone in the back drops a pen. The courtroom stiffened. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Caprio leaned forward, eyes narrowed, brows drawn together. Not in judgment, but in contemplation. He didn't speak. Not yet, just nodded slightly for the prosecution to continue. Prosecutor Whitford. Miss James, do you recognize the voice? Kalina. Yes, that was Mr. Combs. That was the night J-Bo disappeared. Defense Attorney Serrano, rising again. Your Honor, we object to the validity of this recording. We request an independent analysis of the file to verify its authenticity and ensure it hasn't been tampered with. Judge Caprio. The court will arrange for an audio forensic expert to review the file, but for now, it stands as part of the record. Diddy, quietly under his breath. It's out of context. Judge Caprio, gazing at Diddy. Mr. Combs, context matters, so does history. But today, this courtroom will determine what the truth is and what it isn't. He pauses, his expression softening. Judge Caprio, addressing Kalina. Miss James, I want to thank you for having the courage to bring this forward. Whatever the outcome of this case, you've already done something remarkable. You spoke when silence was safer. Kalina nods, her eyes glistening, then looks down. As Kalina stepped down, the air shifted again. Heavier now. The first crack had formed in a wall that had stood tall for decades. But as Judge Caprio glanced once more toward Diddy, it was clear. This trial was just beginning. That's when something unexpected happened. Just as the prosecution began to prepare for its next witness, a chair scraped softly against the polished floor. From the back of the courtroom, a young man rose to his feet. The murmurs began almost instantly, hushed but unmistakable. Some recognized him right away. It was Justin Combs, Diddy's oldest son. Dressed in a charcoal sweater and black slacks, his face held none of the celebrity charm often seen on red carpets. Instead, it was pale, his jaw tense, his hands shaking slightly as he took a step forward. Justin, soft but firm. Your Honor. May I speak? The entire courtroom turned. Even Judge Caprio paused mid-note, surprised. Judge Caprio, measured, curious. You're not on the witness list, son. Justin, nodding slowly. I know, but I have something that should be part of the record. Gasps whispered around the courtroom. Diddy's eyes narrowed slightly. Judge Caprio glanced at the attorneys, who both looked equally surprised, but said nothing. Judge Caprio, approach the bench. Justin walked slowly toward the front, his sneakers squeaking faintly against the tile. In his hand was a small flash drive, barely the size of a coin. But in that moment, it looked like it weighed 100 pounds. Justin, swallowing hard. These are personal video clips. From home, from meetings. Things I overheard or recorded by accident. Some of them I saved without really knowing why. I thought he was just being a strong businessman. Being smart, protecting the brand. But now, I see, people got hurt. He looks over at his father. Diddy shifts in his chair, expression unreadable. Jaw set, eyes focused. Diddy, quietly, warning. Justin, sit down. Don't do this. Justin, turning toward him. No, Dad. I'm not helping you lie anymore. A sharp exhale echoed from the gallery. Judge Caprio watched intently but let the moment breathe. Justin, to Caprio. I know I'm not supposed to be here like this, but I need to say the truth. Not for the media. Not for revenge. Just for the people who got pushed aside, and for the part of me that always knew this day would come. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. Even the prosecutor didn't speak. Even Ms. Serrano looked down, as if the ground had shifted beneath her. Judge Caprio gave a single nod. Judge Caprio. We'll allow it. Officer, please take that drive to the court tech team. Let's review the material on screen. And, son, stay up front. You may need to explain what we're about to see. The courtroom technician inserted the drive. The first video flickered onto the screen. A dimly lit hallway in a sleek Manhattan office. Two voices could be heard, one of them unmistakably Diddy's. Diddy, on video. I don't care what she said, she doesn't get to walk away and talk. If she leaks anything, she's done, blackballed. I'll make sure nobody books her again. The video paused. Silence swallowed the room. Justin, quietly. That was the night after a singer named Bria walked out of her contract. I didn't know who he was talking to, but I heard her crying in the green room earlier. Prosecutor Whitford, stepping forward. Do you have any record of what happened to Bria after this? Justin. She disappeared from the industry, deleted all her pages. I tried finding her years later. Nothing. Judge Caprio, softly. Next clip. A second video appeared, this one in a kitchen, likely their home. Diddy sat at a marble counter laughing on a phone call. Diddy, laughing. Yeah, he'll settle. He's scared. Just float the family threat and he'll go quiet. Justin's voice could be heard faintly in the background asking, Who are you talking about? The video cut off there. Defense Attorney Serrano, rising. Your Honor, we don't know the context of these videos nor whether they've been edited. Judge Caprio, interrupting. You'll have full access to review them, Miss Curie. Serrano, but let me ask you this. Does your client deny the voice is his? Serrano looks toward Diddy. He doesn't answer. She sits down. The courtroom had transformed. This was no longer about celebrity gossip, contracts, or vague allegations. It was a slow unraveling of something deeply human. Betrayal, silence, fear, and now, truth. Judge Caprio, looking at Justin. Why now, son? Justin, his voice breaking slightly. Because every time someone asked me about my dad, I'd smile. I'd lie. I told myself I was protecting the family, but I wasn't. I was protecting power, and people suffered for it. He turned toward his father. Justin, soft, aching. I still love you, Dad, but I can't love the silence anymore. Diddy remained seated. His jaw clenched, but his eyes glistened just slightly. He didn't speak. As the judge called for a brief recess, not a single person moved from their seat. No one wanted to be the first to break the silence that hung like a curtain across the room. The truth had arrived, not with a hammer, but with a whisper. And it had come from Diddy's own son. Judge Caprio, softly leaning forward. Mr. Combs. I've had kids in this courtroom crying over parking violations. Teenagers trembling over a broken tail light. And yet, today, I sit here with a man who's built an empire. Music, fashion, media. You've shaped a generation. He pauses. The courtroom remains hushed. But I need to ask you, at what cost? Caprio folds his hands, his voice low but steady. You see, the public only sees the spotlight. They don't see what's happening behind the curtain. But here, Mr. Combs, I see it all. The pain. The people who are too small to be heard, too afraid to speak, or too late to heal. Diddy, his voice gravelly, eyes down. I didn't start out this way, Your Honor. I came from nothing. I got caught up. I stopped listening to people who weren't clapping. Judge Caprio, gently. That's what fame does. Its applause is loud. So loud sometimes, it drowns out your conscience. And when the people around you are scared to say, stop, that's when the real danger begins. A beat. I'm not here to destroy you, Mr. Combs. That's not what justice is. But I also won't ignore the weight of your choices. Power isn't evil. But unchecked power? That's where men fall. Judge Caprio sat back, his expression unreadable for a moment. This wasn't a case about money or contracts. It was about impact, about lives bent under the weight of one man's rise. And now, with the truth spilling across the courtroom floor like light through a broken window, it was clear. This trial wasn't just about what Diddy had done. It was about who he had become. Prosecutor, Mr. Whitford. Your Honor, before we rest our case, we present one final exhibit. This was submitted anonymously by a whistleblower formerly employed on Mr. Combs' internal legal advisory team. It's time-stamped 2 weeks before today's hearing. The courtroom stilled. A bailiff walked forward and handed a flash drive to the clerk. On the monitor, a grainy but clear video flickered to life. In it, a small room. Plush chairs, bottled water on a table. 5 people sat around Diddy's legal table. One man leaned in, speaking fast. Video clip. Male voice, clearly agitated. We can't let her story gain traction. Dig into Kalina's past, ex-boyfriends, medical history, anything we can spin. If we leak something unsavory, she'll back off. Another voice, female. But she has recordings. They're raw. And Justin's close to flipping. First voice. Then we go after Justin, too. He's not bulletproof. The video ended in a chilling silence. Every face in that courtroom had changed. Stiffer, more alert. Even the cameramen stopped shifting their feet. Judge Caprio, visibly disturbed, leaning forward. Is this how we handle the truth now? Not with facts, not with decency, but with smear campaigns. He paused, eyes narrowing on the defense table. Defense attorney, Ms. Serrano, rising slowly. Your Honor, I'd like to state, for the record, that this meeting was not authorized by Mr. Combs. He was not present, nor was he informed of this discussion. Diddy, quiet, steady. That's true, I didn't tell them to do it. Judge Caprio, measured. No, Mr. Combs, perhaps you didn't. But you built the machine. You chose the gears, you wound the clock, and now it ticks whether you approve or not. He paused again, the disappointment in his tone cutting deeper than anger. When you lead, you don't just own the spotlight, you own the shadows, too. A whisper rippled through the benches. Even Kalina, seated quietly to the side, looked shaken. Not vindicated, just heavy-hearted. The prosecution nodded, satisfied, but not triumphant. This wasn't victory. This was exposure. Prosecutor, softly. That concludes the state's presentation, Your Honor. Judge Caprio, nodding slowly. Very well, the evidence has been seen, the voices have been heard, and the silence is damning. The case had pivoted. No longer just allegations. It was now layered with betrayal, corruption, and accountability. And for the first time, Diddy sat not as a mogul or icon, but as a man unraveling in the eyes of justice. Judge Caprio, rising slightly. Mr. Combs, justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about recognition and restitution. I'm sentencing you to 2 years of probation, mandatory funding of a transparency initiative for music labels, and a public apology broadcasted from your own network. Diddy. That's fair, Your Honor. Thank you. Judge Caprio. But also, I want you to listen. He gestured to Justin. Justin, tearing up. I just wanted my dad back, not the mogul, not the man in every headline. Just Dad. Diddy, whisper. I'm sorry, son. Outside, the press scrambled for quotes. Inside, the judge simply took a sip from his coffee. It wasn't a day of punishment, but of reckoning. Diddy didn't walk out the same man. Neither did his son. And in Judge Caprio's courtroom, justice wasn't only about law, it was about listening. Judge Caprio, off record, we all make mistakes. The difference is what we do after. What would you have done in Judge Caprio's place? Was justice served? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share with a friend, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next case in Judge Caprio's courtroom. Because here, every story is more than a case. It's a window into the human soul.